going to start with the artillery demonstration now. I will say this is going to be a little bit louder, not only because you're closer to the guns, but obviously these are a little bit bigger than what they were using out there in the field. So I'll give you an idea of what we're going to do. We're going to load up both guns. We're going to fire. Once the guns are secure, we'll tell you a little bit about the guns, about the drill, that kind of stuff. And then if you really are interested, we'll load them up and fire them a second time. So, good rule of thumb. All right, these are going to be loud. When you see me with my hand in the air, that's a good time to cover your ears. Kids, hey, look, if your parents are scared of loud noises and stuff, hold on to your parents, right? I don't want your parents running off or nothing like that, right? I don't see any pets out here, but if you've got dogs out here, you might want to hold on to them too, especially if they don't like loud noises, because it's going to be loud. So,
stood next to two of them.
If you have hearing aids, you might want to turn them down, turn them off. Kids, make sure your parents are good to go, and cover your ears when you see my hand go up. Section, attention! Commence firing! Load! Load!
Over there. It's just powder. We be ringing too. We can't hear nobody bumping at us.
Dixon's ready, sir. That's actually fairly interesting stuff. Here we go. On the signal. Fire by piece, left to right. 3-second interval. Fire! Fire! Alright folks, what we've got here today is referred to as a section of artillery. A section is 2 guns. Artillery was organized into a unit called a battery. A battery could be 4 guns or 6 guns. So the section is 2. Each section would have a section commander. Section commander would report to the battery commander. Orders would be passed down through the levels of command. Both of the guns that we have here today are rifled artillery pieces. On your right, we have a 10-pounder Parrott rifle. On your left, we have a 3-inch ordnance rifle. Both of these rifled artillery pieces were very, very common during the war. And in a lot of cases, they would be paired in batteries with smoothbore artillery pieces. Now, the difference is your ammunition. Your smoothbore artillery pieces are going to fire round shot, whereas these rifled pieces are going to fire something that looks like this. They're going to fire more of a bullet-shaped projectile. This happens to be a shell. There was a fuse in the nose here. This is an explosive shell. All right? The advantage of rifled artillery pieces is greater range and greater accuracy. So a lot of times you would have your rifled pieces firing against enemy artillery or other hard targets as well as personnel. Your smoothbore pieces would be firing at opposing infantry firing exploding shells, canister shot, things of that nature. So this is the shot. They're going to load that in front of a powder bag that looks like this. So the powder bag is going to go in first, followed by the shell. And I'll tell you how all that works here in a second. These are sort of line of sight pieces. If you can see it, theoretically you can hit it. All right. These rifled artillery pieces have a maximum range of certainly up to a mile or so. So I mean, you know, you've got some range on these pieces if you can see that far. Regardless, both of these pieces are operated in the same manner. Let me use my demonstration crew over here. So there's a process that has to be followed to load and fire these guns. Everybody on this crew would know how to do every job on the crew. They would be kind of interchangeable, right? Pretty easy way to explain this is the two men up front work together to clean and load the piece. Starting with number one. Number one is equipped with a sponge rammer. One of the things he's going to do is he's got a wet woolen sponge on the end of the staff there. After the piece is fired, he's going to run that sponge down the barrel. Now that's not necessarily to cool it down or anything like that. You'd have to fire these pieces for a long time at a very fast rate of fire for them to get really heated up. But what he's doing is putting sparks out. When you fire these pieces, there's going to be sparks left in that barrel. You want to put those sparks out before you put a cloth bag of gunpowder back in there to reload it, or you're going to have a bad day, especially number one. So he's going to sponge that piece out and put all those sparks out and clean the piece out. Then he's going to flip that over. He's got on the other end, he's got a wooden head on the end of the shaft. That's the rammer. When the ammunition is inserted into the muzzle, he's going to ram that ammunition down. These are muzzle-loaded pieces. Ammunition goes in the front, it's rammed down and fired back out. So he's going to sponge out the piece, he's going to ram down the ammunition. He is assisted by number two. Number two has an implement called the worm. It looks like a sort of an iron corkscrew on the end of that shaft. Once the piece is fired, he's going to run that down there and remove any pieces of the powder bag or other debris that might be left in the barrel. You know, some of that cloth may not have come out when it was fired. There may be other obstructions in there. Certainly in our case, in our situation, we find all kinds of crazy stuff in cannons because sometimes people put things in there that they shouldn't. We use the worm to get anything out of the barrel that's not supposed to be in there. Then once they have finished cleaning the cannon, number two is going to accept the ammunition as it's brought forward and place it into the muzzle for number one to ram down. So those two are working together to clean and load. Number three is the busiest man on the crew. He's got something to do at every step of the process. While the cannon is being cleaned and loaded, he has his thumb over the vent, the hole on the back of the barrel. You see he's got a leather piece on his thumb called a thumb stall. What he's doing is he is closing off the air from going down the vent. So as the sponge goes in, it's not pushing air in and out that vent. Because if you're pushing air in and out of that barrel, all you're doing is fanning sparks. So he's creating a seal inside that barrel to keep air out while it's being cleaned and loaded. Anytime number one and number two are in front of that cannon working, he's going to have his thumb on that vent. Once the gun is loaded, he's going to help aim. He's going to come to the rear. He's going to take up the trail hand spike. And on the gunner's command, he will move that gun side to side to bring it on target, as the gunner instructs. Once the gun is aimed, he's going to go back to his position, and he is going to prepare the gun for firing. He has got a long brass pick called a vent pick or a priming wire. He's going to run that down the vent, poke a hole in the powder bag, so that the detonator can fire the powder bag. So number one's constantly moving and doing something throughout this whole process. Number four has the cool job. He actually gets to fire it. What he's using to fire this gun is called a friction primer. A friction primer is a brass or copper tube filled with very finely milled gunpowder. It's got a wire crimped into the top of it with a loop on it. The loop goes on the end of his lanyard there and gets inserted into the vent. When he pulls the lanyard, it rips the wire out of the primer, which causes the primer to fire down into the powder bag and detonate the cannon. Friction primer, that's what he's using. Now, one thing you'll notice about that lanyard's pretty long. That's so he can get out of the way. Nobody wants to be standing behind these cannons when they fire, because if you're firing live rounds, they do recoil. That gun's gonna roll back 8 or 10 feet probably when it fires. You don't want to be standing behind it, it weighs a ton. So the lanyard is long enough so that he can get out from behind the wheels and not be in the way when the cannon fires. You got the number 5 man here, he's running the powder up to the number 2 man. The gunner's going to call for what type of shot he wants. The man at the box, assisted by other men at the box, they're going to pick out whatever ammo the gunner requests. They're going to put it in the bag. Number 5 is going to take it to the gunner. The gunner's going to check it, make sure it's the right thing, and then he's going to take it forward for number 2 to take out of the bag and load into the cannon. So he's going to be back and forth between the ammunition chest and the cannon, carrying ammunition. You know, as I said, he'll have men at the chest who are assisting him in picking the proper ammunition, putting it in the bag for him to carry forward. And then finally we have the gunner. The gunner is in command of the piece. He receives all of the orders from section commander, battery commander, etc. And he is the one who gives the commands to load and fire the gun. He also is in charge of aiming the piece. That means he's got to have a little bit of knowledge. He's got to be able to visually estimate range to target. There's no computers at this point in time. He's got to be able to look at a target and say, that's how far away it is, and then adjust the gun appropriately to try to hit that target. We already talked about how you aim the gun laterally, side to side. That's number 3, using trail handspike, moving it side to side. The way you adjust for range is the gunner uses the pendulum Hawk sight on the back of the cannon, lining it up with the post sight on the front of the barrel, and using the elevating screw to elevate or lower the barrel to get the appropriate angle to hit the distance that he's trying to hit. And they're doing all of this as fast as they can in a combat situation. Unlike us out here today, we're taking our time and going slow. So that's the basic process in loading and firing these guns. I assume since y'all are still hanging out, you want to hear it again? Yep. All right. So what we're going to do, we'll load up and fire one more. Once the pieces are secure and the boxes are locked, then we'll let y'all come up, look at the cannons closer, ask questions, all that kind of stuff. There we go. Section, attention.
They're going to go through the whole process.
Load. And load. Dixon's load. Dixon's ready, sir. Proceed.
Adam's ready, sir.
Proceed.
Ooh, here we go.
Fire by the piece, right to left. 1 second interval.
This one first.
Fire.
Fire.